Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another 5 Minutes with Sean, maybe 10 sit-down edition, as we're prone to doing. We're trying to do a couple of interviews a month, keep everything fresh, having fun. I don't know if you guys got my teaser at the end of the last episode, because jokingly, I have no idea how much of these shows you guys actually watch. But at the end of the last episode, I teased that today's guest loves electric vehicles more than I love sports analogies. And so if you didn't know who that was, you do now. He's up on the screen. Matt Tedesco, Program Manager, Shift Digital. Matt, how are you today?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. I'm awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really know that you do have a large space in your heart for EV. I see your posts. I read them. You are an articulate dude, man. I'll tell you that. You really are articulate. I like how you tend to comment on things that I comment on, and you just do it in such a classy corporate way. And I love that about you, because I don't have any of that in me. Please do it. I'm envious. So good work. And thank you for all that you do for not only our community on LinkedIn, but the automotive industry as a whole.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So as everyone knows, the bit here is it's the guest's call. And today Matt has a topic he wants to talk about. So Matt, what are we talking about?
All right. Well, I assumed you thought we were going to talk about EVs, so I figured I would spice it up a
I
little
told my
bit.
wife I was terrified you were going to do this to me, because I'm not a guy, right? It's not my thing, but so no, you're not, because you're joking it.
I figured we'd talk about something else.
Okay.
So we've got a convergence of a lot of things going on in the industry, right? We've got the Tesla direct-to-consumer, Rivian direct-to-consumer, Lucid Motors, right? The Carvanas of the world all selling really without dealerships. We've got every OEM telling every dealer in the country they need digital retailing to move us towards an e-commerce type model. Ford just announced the other day that they are wasting a ton of money on incentives and are trying to lower days supply, have more people order cars. So the real question is, are we at the very beginning of the end of the franchise? Are they going to end? Are franchises just going to be delivery and service centers, and people are going to just order cars? I know it's a loaded question. A lot of ways to answer it.
It is. So there's a lot to look at when you talk about that. And to add to that, Australia is now, they've got their Honda dealers have gone in a direct model. They call it something different in Europe, but they have a name for it, basically being like, you're a dealer who controls nothing. We will spiff your salespeople and you will service our cars. And Honda saw like a 55% drop in sales. And they're like, yeah, it's because of inventory levels. Like, they were able to write off the whole story, right? So I'll tell you my background. My background is in franchise, right? I was working on being a franchise owner. That was career goal number 1A, right, for most of my adult life. And so, but you've seen the model struggle. You've seen the model struggle with the Tesla piece. And then how, again, Tesla sets precedent, right? So as soon as Rivian comes along, they're like, well, you already did that. And so people are like, well, yeah, we did that. And so it compounds. The thing about it, Matt, is that the franchise dealer is so much more to its community than I think people truly understand. So whether it's from a tax basis, whether it's from an involvement basis, whether it's from an employment basis. So I get concerned that if the model does change, there's just such bigger impacts to it. I would hope that the manufacturer, how is the manufacturer going to unwind these deals, Matt? How do you see them saying, hey, well, it's been 100 years, so we're going to actually tear these up? And does it become state by state, Matt? Does this become, is it federal, right? Like how you've been thinking about it clearly. What do you think of the legalities of it? Let's just start there.
So from a legal standpoint, right, we're currently in a state by state, right? You can sell Teslas in certain state and not in others, right? And Rivian is trying to do the same thing. I wonder if there comes an administration, maybe not Biden, I'm going to guess after that, right, that decides that allowing somebody like Rivian or Tesla to be federally granted that right happens. And the reason I say that is these people have got a lot of money, right? If Bezos wants to lobby the government, I don't know if like the UAW has enough money to combat that, right? That's the political system that we live in, right?
Correct.
So, right. So from that standpoint, if you put, if Elon and Jeff and RJ all get together and decide, hey, we're going to lobby the government collectively to end that state by state and make it a federal mandate, I don't know if they'd lose. I don't know if they're willing to do that together. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So from a legal standpoint, it's interesting.
From a legal standpoint, money. And that's like government. If you want to lobby, you have to have money to do it. It's no different than anything else going on in this country right now. I mean, anything people want to lobby for, you can lobby for. The money is there, and so here we go. But at this level, manufacturers, they have tough enough time manufacturing cars, Matt. So the thought of them being responsible for the end-to-end transaction is terrifying. To see how they jump at trends, DR being the most namely one now, their overreaction to that is concerning. And then what would be the point, right, of a dealer? Like if I own 4 stores right now and you want to just turn me into a service center, I'll just turn myself into a service center. You can take your franchises, I'll go full use, full service, and I'll just move on with my life, I guess. I don't know. It would be difficult to see that sort of relationship. I mean, it can't happen that soon, I guess is what I'm going to say to that, Matt.
No, I don't think so either.
It's the lifetime thing for you and I. Probably your kid's life, more than likely, direct to consumer is certainly going to be a thing. But I think the Teslas of the world, the Rivian, those dudes built their company this way. So that's how their company operates, right? Is with the idea it's always been direct to consumer. Right. I think it'd be very difficult for long-standing brands to somehow make that swap to be able to make their people internal people or absorb enough people and change job function. I mean, what would then happen to every district, regional office manager, the guys who go out and help the dealers? Like, what? Like, I mean, I guess I'm just looking at the job elimination and all the things that would come down the line with that. Am I off base, Matt, or is that something that you think is a consideration of just total job kind of annihilation from a local to a corporate level?
So I think my personal opinion is that we're going to see the continuation of a contraction. And what I mean by that is you've got OEM or brands out there like Lithia, right, who are just buying up stores everywhere. Right, like that's their MO, right? They're trying to be the biggest, outdo AutoNation and Penske and everybody else, right? So from the job elimination standpoint, it might be easier for an OEM to manage fewer dealer relations, for one. Those jobs too, right? Somebody, as we all know, somebody at some OEM is a bean counter and saying, well, we don't need those jobs. We can get rid of that job, and that job. Right. And that's profitability for an OEM. If the OEM is then more profitable, they can do more for said dealer groups, right? Better incentives or whatever the case may be. So my personal opinion is we're going to continue to see a contraction. The small mom and pops are going to disappear at an alarming rate, which they feel like they are already, at least to me. And those dealer groups are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the groundwork in North America is already laid for that in Canada. I think Canada runs a very similar system to that, where I joke that it's like 5 guys own every province in Canada, and they just divide it. and again, I think it leads to some different things that happen though structurally. I think that becomes. I know that Tesla calls it price integrity, but it can also be gouging. It can also be fixing when you look at it from the perspective of we own it, we say it, we talk about it. The advantage to the consumer for franchise dealers for business, the effort, the work. I don't think the OEMs would look at it the same way at their level as it does at a store level. Again, so then getting into retail is, I don't know, that sounds tricky to me. I think they're going to need a lot of retail assistance from groups like Lithia. But again, if you have 20 Honda stores, then Honda would probably approach you first and talk to you about what you saw, what you think you'd see. I, for one, hate the idea. I don't know if I've already made that clear enough. I hate it because I love the mom and pop, right? I love that dealership. I love because I work with a lot of them. So we get to see how it impacts their communities, what they do. Right. And I know people say, well, it's community, they'll have to find someone else. Like, yeah, but that's silly. We got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year dealership groups. Like, it's the only, one of the only remaining dynasty legacy businesses left, Matt. So to me, I have a soft spot for that. Do you see this as a positive? Let's talk about the consumer. Let's step away from the dealer for a second. Talk to me about how I know how you kind of feel about it, because the Tesla, the EV, like the model already makes sense to you, but your industry, your job as a program man, would your job still exist if the OEM was already direct to consumer? Would they need you?
No.
The store? Would they even need your company?
No, probably not. Right?
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, there's from a consumer standpoint, there's a lot of positives. There's also a lot of negatives, but let's do the positives first.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, Tesla is successful, right? They're selling a lot of cars. Wow. Right. I think Rivian is going to sell a ton of vehicles. Right.
Very cool design by those people. That pickup truck is super cool.
I'm
really into that.
Me too.
But I am.
Yeah. The activity vehicles with all of the putting a cooking grill inside of your truck. Yeah. Right. Right. That's kind of genius, to be honest. Right. I mean, it's something that will shake up the industry once somebody really sees oh my God, I can drive into the middle of Colorado in the middle of nowhere and cook my food in my truck. That's
instead of GMC worrying about having 3 steps on a tailgate.
Yeah. I've gotten so old that I can't step up on my truck anymore. Yeah, totally get it. But, I think for my kids, right? I've got a daughter who's 11, boys who are 9. Everything for them is digital. Right? I don't know.
You've already said your kid's not getting a gas car. She's 11, so which means she's 5 years out, and you've already stated she ain't getting a gas car, so she can look at whatever she wants, but it ain't gonna have gas. Is she cool with that? Do you know? Is she already someone who's into looking at cars? Do kids at that age care, Matt?
So because I work with BMW, they talk about BMWs, right? I own a BMW, so everything is when do I get my BMW?
Yeah.
Right. Which is funny for
my helpful, right?
Yeah.
Too early for that.
So slow down. But from the consumer standpoint, obviously Carvana's successful, right? We've got a lot of people who are buying cars online and just dropping them off somewhere, and people are cool with that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people are going to be more cool with that as time goes on. So I think the hard thing for the consumer now from an OEM perspective is take somebody like Carvana. They're successful because they're selling a product that right? You go buy a 2017 Honda CR-V, you already know the vehicle, right? The EVs are going to be harder because are you going to go buy an EV without having test drove it? I think most people won't. Tesla, I feel, is a weird example.
Do you think existing people will though, Matt? Or do you think they'll have to go try, do you think an i4 will drive different than a Rivian or a Tesla? And so would you see yourself as saying, I've driven a EV, but I haven't driven that EV? Would that make a difference to you?
So I've driven Tesla.
Right.
But I don't know if I would go buy the i4 without test driving.
Okay.
So I also read, and I don't know the accuracy of this statement, that 3/4 of all pre-orders for Rivian are Tesla owners.
I've heard that as well. I've heard there's a serious thirst for that. When the Nissan Leaf came, I was with Nissan dealers at the time. Yeah. And when the Nissan Leaf came out, people were like, oh, well, we have a Prius hybrid. So you could see the evolution of that consumer. I happened to be in Boulder, Colorado, so you don't get much more green of an idea and environment than that. But that's who the buyer was, right? And then people would come in and they would say, "Do you have any used Teslas? I want to get rid of my Leaf." And you were like, "Oh, okay." So if Rivian is somehow different or a step up. I don't know how they position themselves in the market but it's different. So then it becomes the Ford, GMC, Chevy type thing, right?
Yep.
Where you want to go
Yep.
drive. Look, me personally, Matt, I'm never buying a car that I haven't driven. Like, that's just me. Like, I'll order a car, I don't like it, I will tell someone I don't like it and they can go sell it. I've done it before. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have you bought a car without, what's the biggest thing you ever bought without using it, test driving it, or touching it?
I didn't test drive. I have a 330, a 2019. I didn't test drive it.
Did you own a 330 previous?
328. Yeah.
Okay. But you owned a
and that's the
BMW
Carvana model to me, right? Like, I've also had 3 Audis and 4 Fords, and like, if I was to go buy,
but you drove all those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But did you purchase that way because you could, without driving it? Was that your point? Like, you're like, I already know what the car is, I'm just getting the next year's model.
Yeah.
Like, is that how you viewed it?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. Because I joke with my wife that when she first told me she wanted to buy a dishwasher online, I was like, what? We are not. You have to go to Home Depot. You got to touch this thing. It's like, you're an asshole. We are not doing that. I am buying this. Do you see this right here on HomeDepot.com? Click. You just bought it. It'll be here in 3 days, and they're putting it in. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And now I bought the oven that way. I buy the range that way. I bought the hood that way. I bought the washer and dryer. It just took once, So I get it.
Yeah.
I do. I totally get it. Just maybe I want the car purchase to be different because it's my life. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm too close to the situation to say, well, yeah, it'd be good for people, where I say, no, that would suck for everybody involved. You have to go to your dealership. Not really. I've always believed in remote retail. That's what I wish people would get over on digital retail, Matt, is the idea of doing it online. Matt, if I told you could do the same thing on the phone in 7 minutes that you could do by punching keys in on your phone or laptop, wouldn't you just pick your phone up?
So it's funny you say that, right? So I've been having this conversation about service scheduling.
Okay.
I don't schedule service online, ever. I pick up the phone and I call somebody because I want to talk to a human being. Okay. Right? So that's
blowing mind here, Matt. The things that you'll take a step back on.
Right. So that's, and that's where kind of all of this is converging in my mind, right? Like, obviously we know, like, OEMs are like I said, Ford has said, like, we're spending way too much money on incentives. We would like to reduce our days supply, have less cars on the ground, because we think it's going to be better for everybody. I wonder if somebody, and I don't know the people at Ford or any of the OEMs like that for that matter, but somebody's just going to come along and say, well, why don't we just keep taking it a step further, right? Why don't we take the model where, instead of having 100 cars on the ground, the dealer only has 20, and you can test drive whatever you want, and then you just order it, right? And do we need as many dealers to do that?
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other side of action. I think that OEMs will see that Lithia or whoever bought, X amount of stores in an area, and they'll say, hey, it turns out we don't need 3 Chevy stores. If you own all 3, just make it one, centralize it, and let's move on with our lives. That would be great. But there's also gigantic investments here, right? We're talking about millions of dollars of facilities. You're talking about the press from these particular OEMs to build all of these buildings in the last 5 years, right? So, like, damn these people. But I'm seeing that Ford is incentivizing their dealers to get pre-orders, right? They're also pre-checking to make sure you didn't just put a name on a truck to get it in faster.
Right.
So, but Matt, do you think they can live up to the turn? Because I don't. I don't think they can live up to the demand of customer turn, because it has to be on the 90th day at the consumer level. They're used to giving it to dealers who they can tell the dealer it'll be 97 days. The consumer does not listen the way the dealer listens. The consumer will leave. Then what? When you got me to pre-order all these cars and you can't deliver, now what?
Right. Especially if my down payment was refundable.
And in most states it is. Most states there's no binding anything to a pre-order of anything.
Right.
And so there's no dedication to the brand. There's nothing. People say, oh, well, we'll go put them in a loaner. Yeah, I don't have any of those, bro. We don't have any cars. So I can't just go put people in loaners anymore. It's crazy, right? Dealership demos aren't a thing. People are driving, I met with a CEO of a large dealer group. I said, what are you? He said, I'm driving whatever I can find. I'm like, what about? Like, he goes, everything's for sale, Sean. None of my guys are driving demos. Everybody's driving whatever's in the lot today. Nobody has a car they live in. And I thought to myself, wow, that's a change in the level of not having cars sitting around, not having birthdays, age units. That stuff's not funny, man. When you want to go out and put a birthday cake on a mini because it's been there 366 days, that kind of shit is not funny, and we could do without it. So part of me is cool with the, what do we want to call it, slim down model, but I still think you need dealers to sell cars because I don't think the manufacturers are outfitted to do it. Personally, the way that they're set up, or the way that they view the journey, in my opinion, why we give away incentives on cars, man, is beyond me. Just give everyone the best 2-year lease on money can buy. Make it as inexpensive as possible and turn the damn thing back over.
So that's a really interesting question I was going to ask you. I wonder why we don't have more 2-year leases.
Subaru, okay, 2000. See, I was running the Subaru store 2006. My little sister, I think she had to correct me on this one. I got her a 2007 Subaru Legacy, 2007, 2008 Subaru Legacy sedan lease, 2 years, $99 a month, $12K. You know what she did 2 years later? Came back, got the next one for $129. Now she drives a brand new 2020 XT Turbo Forester for like $600 a month. She did it herself.
Right.
Never had to do anything. All it was every 2 years, give her something cooler to get into and don't too much until she has it to move herself. What the fuck are we doing with 6-year loans?
Right? Right? Like our parents, like I'll speak for my parents, right? They didn't lease cars. They bought them. They bought everything, right? Everything was, I had it for 7 or 8 years, right? Yes. And we're seeing that contract over time where OEMs want everybody to lease, right? Because they believe it's going to create retention.
Right.
That's fine, right? Everybody wants to be Apple, right? You want a new phone every 2 years, right?
Correct.
Why not?
Right.
Why not have that model of like, okay, I'm in my car for 18 months. I can just go pay out some money, maybe split it with somebody out, whether it's the OEM or the dealer, and then get another one.
That's it. And let me say to you, though, you said it right there. You said the OEMs talk about the lease. That's what they want. That's what they want. They don't sure look like that's what they want, Matt. They don't put any incentive towards that. I mean, how many leases you go sit down in front of someone and your buddy goes, no, don't look at that lease. It's terrible. Money factor's trash. Residuals trash. And you think to yourself, what are you talking about? The people who own the car can set all of this shit right now on their own. It's mind-numbing. And it's another reason why I would never trust them direct to consumer. Because they wouldn't understand a 2-year lease. They'd rather see a 7-year payment, 6 years of no interest. What? And now that no one's leasing cars and everyone's buying cars well for over what they're worth, 2 years from now, we're screwed, folks.
Oh, it's all coming back.
Your consumers who you thought loved you when you ripped their heads off because they didn't know any better and you couldn't care less, in 2 years, they hate you. In 2 years, they can't get out of their cars. And in 2 years, we're all now contractions happening quicker because there's nothing in market. So dealers have to go out of business. Things have to change. It's no different than what happened after 2008, man. It's the same. Cash for kilometers brought on what? Mad contraction. After it was over, they were like, hey, thanks for helping all the units. Now close your doors.
Yeah, I mean, what everybody's going to owe paying out for their car is going to be nowhere close to there's a residual value, and we're going to have a lot of pissed off people.
Tons.
A lot.
In general, and they're going to be aggravated with the process, and it's going to start the whole cycle of distrust over again. So whatever effort you made to stop with distrust with your DR tool, which is bullshit, but let's assume that did work, it doesn't matter. They don't care anymore. They got to buy the car online, got screwed for it. When Carvana shows you that profit for the quarter, they can pat themselves on the back, but can you really continue to do that if you continue to pile people into cars?
Right.
Then it's not Carvana's problem in 2 years. What do they care? Then it becomes someone else's problem trying to get you out of a car. And then people are getting creative with new cars and $10,000 rebates. And God. If it was federally mandated, you could only lease cars, we'd all be better off.
Probably.
We'd all be better off. Matt, when you look at this whole thing, you talk about the convergence of everything that's happened within this space. You sit in an interesting position between dealer and OEM in some level. What are your dealers talking to you about when it comes to this idea? Because I know it's out there. I'm seeing articles every day about, they call it the agency model in Australia. I forget the young man's name. Cameron. He's from Australia. He's on LinkedIn. Forget his last name, but he's the dude I follow, and he's always putting this stuff out there. The agency model. My buddy Artur Zaluska from Poland also spoke about Europe going at Mercedes-Benz to the agency model. Do your dealers bring up anything of concerns about consumer direct? Do you hear that at a grassroots level, Matt, or is this just something that concerns you as a person overlooking an industry?
It's more of a concern for me, to be honest. I look at it and, for the OEM that I work with, BMW, they're having a fantastic year, right? The limit of inventory for luxury brands is a good thing, right? It drives up price, it drives up profitability. I think all of them really understand that we're looking at a limited window in time, right? But one of the things that they're also talking about more, and I know that other OEMs are talking about it more too, is limiting days supply, right? We don't need to flood dealers with hundreds of cars, right? We just don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that. The consumers don't need one of everything, right? Here's a good example, completely non-automotive related. So my mom wanted to get a new iPhone, and she's in her 70s. She has no idea what the heck she's doing, right? So it's like, all right, meet me at the Apple store. We'll go to the Apple store, right? And we'll look at phones. She decided she wanted to get a purple one. Well, they didn't have a purple one, right? Didn't carry that one. You can order it. It was at our house in 2 days, right? That's the same type of thing that we all talk about with e-commerce in the industry and Apple and with digital retailing. And so I wonder, OEMs do the same thing, right? Why do we need 1,000 cars on a dealer lot so that there's literally one of every single package combination that you could possibly imagine, every single color? I don't think consumers really shop like that.
Matt, you know that we would be happy with that, right? As a dealer, to not have to, because we have to carry the note on all those cars.
Right.
So when we have a revolving balance of 2.5 million, we could have one of 1.2. Yeah, I think we would all agree that would be a much better floor plan for all of us. And to be clear, dealers are rejoicing if this really happens because they've been asking for it their whole lives.
Right.
They've never wanted to get. I don't know, Matt. Have you been in retail? I don't know your history on that side. No. So in retail, as you can imagine, that's all those guys do. They come in, they're like, well, you're going to have to take 6 Armadas if you want 6 Titans. And I'm like, sure. I don't sell any Armadas. They don't give a shit. I just need a Titan. It's like, well. So if we can get rid of all that garbage and we can just make it about what sells in my markets, why does everyone need, I never knew it with like Nissan Xteras. I was top 2 salesman in the country for Nissan. They call me, they're like, how do you do it? I'm like, guys, are we serious? He goes, yeah. I go, my test drive route goes through the mountains of Boulder. Like I stop at a pinnacle overlooking like an unbelievable view. It's not me, dude. It's the car. I make it do like 2 seconds of rock crawling and then I leave it and they sell themselves. And so, but he's like, well, we don't sell the same in Missouri. He goes, no shit.
Why would you?
Like, why are we talking about Missouri, bro? Like, what is this about? And so I think manufacturers could do a much better job of being regional. I know they say they are, but I see it all the time with cars sitting on lots that have no business. Look at Ford got rid of sedans, Matt. You think now they're wishing they still had sedans sitting around somewhere?
Oh my God. It's funny. Back when I was with Cobalt a decade ago, I had Syracuse and New York City.
Okay.
Syracuse, one of the best truck markets in the country. New York City, obviously not. Can't park a truck in New York City, right? But they still had to take a certain amount because they still had to take a certain amount.
Part of the brand agreement.
I mean, we're in the same state, right? But that turn and earn model of like, nobody in New York City selling a ton of trucks unless they work in Long Island and they're a contractor.
The turn and burn, dudes, all tied to the back end of the trunk money, which is a whole nother problem that we've created from the OEM to dealers, this incentivizing below the line. And move this number retroactive to last year's improvement, which is just a number we picked out of a fucking hat anyways. And so if you do that, we'll give you an additional retro back to here. And then you got guys spending money on cars. They don't even hit the retro number. So they just end up losing all that money a car. It's just so unnecessary. We could just simplify this whole thing for dealer OEM. But Matt, the more we talk about it, they need each other. This model may work for people who built their company this way. I will say that. Tesla, that's how they built it. But this relationship that exists wasn't built that way. I liken it to Techion right now in our industry, right?
Yeah.
Techion company. They built their company to be this, to be all the big guys, Frank and Tech, you can't do that. You can try, but
Right.
you can't go back and reset the way you started your company 25 years ago.
Right.
These dudes, they started it differently. Tesla started it differently. I don't know his overhead per employee. I bet you it's less than Chevy's. I bet you it's less than Ford's. I bet you he uses less people, more robotics to get more done quickly. That would be my guess. So if that's what comes of this, is people being more efficient, all about it. Hands down, great. Matt, do you think efficiency will really come from this on the OEM side?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I would say
yes.
I'm going to say yes.
We might as well finish with one.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
But I think we're going to see, and I won't name names, but somebody's going to try. Somebody's going to try to be really direct to consumer and essentially cut out the dealers to a certain extent, right? You put in your zip code, you order the car, you get credit. Somebody's going to really try it. Somebody's going to go the other way and be like, we're not going to do it at all, right? But I do think the major driving factor to all of it, the efficiency model, are the Lithias and the AutoNations and Sonics and the rest of them buying up stores. I think that's what's going to make them all more efficient, because I do think we're going to see less stores than we ever have. 10 years from now, I'll bet there's 2/3 of what's on the ground across the country today. That's my guess. Because I don't think we will need them. The people growing up like my kids, I don't know if they're really going to care.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they're gonna. I mean, there's a company called Mobileye. I don't know if you've seen them, that they're driving a car around New York City, completely autonomous for 40 minutes. An Israeli-based company is now owned by Intel. 100% autonomous. Guys just sitting behind the wheel, not holding anything, driving all through New York City for 40 minutes.
Yeah, no, when I see it in Vegas, I cringe. When I'm waiting for regular cabs and the car just pulls up with nothing going on, I'm like, what the hell is that? No, again, I get it. I had this conversation with Chris Martinez on my show earlier this year, where he said, Sean, wouldn't you just love to be able to sit in a car, read a book, and have it take you somewhere? No, not me.
You wouldn't? I would.
I know, I get it. No, I get it. Not me, man. It's part of my DNA. It's who I am. I love being in my car. I love being on the road. I love that engagement. So no, I like my cruise, but that's as far as I take it. And even sometimes then I get bored of the concept. But I understand.
And I think that's the different in how we grew up in the industry, right? Where I've been a field rep most of my life, right? And even before I worked specifically in automotive, I sold yellow pages and telecom, and I've been driving around for 20 years.
Yeah.
The productivity that I lose driving from, New York City up to Albany or to Boston of 3 hours where I have to pay attention. I can't type reports. I can't send emails. I can't do all of those things. I want the ability to drive the car, but I would also love the car to drive myself sometimes. Right? I'm tired. Right. There's obviously
it all goes into the world of that. Like, again, would I like the fact that if we were driving 16 hours that we could just stop for 4 of them and then let the car drive the 4? I guess that would be more appealing. Then I would probably never ever get in an aircraft again. So there would be a whole nother thing, like at least in the continental United States, if I could do that. But could you really do it, right? Matt, could you really go on an autonomous road trip? That doesn't feel like lifetime thing to me. It feels like something you could do in New York, Chicago with the grids, the systems. But no, I don't think it can take me from here to Colorado over 1,000 miles. No, I don't. Not yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's just again, you're right about how we grew up. I grew up in this business. So I got a new car every time I sold my last one. And the first car I tried to sell was my car. So, it was, you know what I mean? Like, that's how demos worked in Chicago in the 90s. So that's how you upgraded your lifestyle, was to sell the car you were in. So it didn't matter what people wanted. Most times I'm like, yeah, you sure you don't need this?
I'm trying to figure out what manual transmission car that I'm going to buy and make really nice just to keep it.
Manual transmission. Holy cow, right? I can't. I can totally tell when kids are trying to learn it. I've seen it in my neighborhood where a parent's trying to teach a kid. You're just like, there's nothing more obvious in this world than that right there. And you won't ever see that. Man, I don't even hear electric cars, let alone hear them get restarted and then kill again. Like, that's joy to me. But look, man, on this whole thing, to wrap it up, when you look at this, you talk about 2/3 of the dealers. You talk about the way that the setup will be. Do you think that things like digital retail will play any part in that? Do you think all this pushing and shoving we're doing to dealers about it, and the OEM, right? You've talked about, you won't name names, but I've seen a few of them go with the come to us, order your car model, right? And you think to yourself, and they build their own in-house DR tool, and you go and you log on, you're like, wait a second, there's all these dealers to choose from, and you think to yourself, this isn't cool. Because at the end of the day, the dealers is that's how, again, they need each other. That's how they all got to where they are.
Right.
The success that people have as dealerships go. But to your point about ordering, Matt, last thing I'll say, ultra luxury's had it figured out. Ultra luxury don't keep cars on the ground. You don't walk into a Porsche dealership and have all the cars sitting there. I just took on recently some Ferrari clients out in Florida. That's a whole new world. They don't even, people are like, well, one of the marketers they worked with was like, well, yeah, we're having a tough time with new VDPs. I'm like, that's because there are none. What do you mean new VDPs? They
for a Ferrari dealer? That's kind
of like there are. First of all, how did you get here as a marketer? And second of all, there are none, dude. There's not. He's like, well, how many cars they have on the ground? It's like they don't.
Yeah, zero.
You don't just stock $600,000 Ferraris and sit there.
Yeah, interesting.
So there is a model for efficiency in that, and I think it all comes back to efficiency.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, your whole comment on this thing is that if we can make it more efficient for dealer, consumer, OEM, then we should probably find a way to do that. And if that means contraction, if that means less of everything, but it makes people more efficient. See, if we have less of everything and you start sucking at your job, this becomes a problem.
Right.
So, Matt, what are the biggest? What's your biggest upside to this happening, and what's your biggest downside to this happening now that we've put it out in the world?
So I think the biggest upside is for the consumer, right? So I don't think any OEM is going to go completely direct to consumer, right? BMW is not just going to flip their model and say, you know what, no more dealers, right? I think we're going to see a bell curve. And what I mean by that, I think more people are going to do it because more people are getting comfortable with doing it, right? Obviously, Tesla's been successful and that's their business model. So people are getting comfortable with that. Carvana's been successful. People are getting comfortable with that. I think we're going to see more people doing it. So from that perspective, for the consumer, the efficiency point is the best one, right? Nobody really wants to spend 10 hours in a dealership on a Saturday anymore, right? I think that's really what digital retailing is helping people do, is they're more information, right? You can figure out what wheel and tire costs. You can figure out what the cold weather package costs. You can figure out what all these things cost without having to sit in F&I, right? You can read through them at your leisure. So I think digital retailing is making people more efficient already. I think we can do a significantly better job at it. I don't think it's just about buying a car online. I think it's more information from the consumer.
Okay.
The downside.
Yep.
The downside is that right now, I don't think the industry understands digital retailing at all. I don't think the OEMs really understand it. I don't think the dealers really understand it. I think there's obviously, because of COVID, it just got accelerated 5 or 10 years, right? That everybody's got to have those tools now. I think the dealerships that'll do really well with it understand that it's just part of the process, right? Helping consumers how to build their cars, but still using it as a way to get them into the dealership to test drive things, right? I think, you know, the whole COVID has really done a lot of crazy changes for the industry. You know, I like I said, with myself personally and driving an EV, I want to test drive them all really before I go buy one, right? But I also want to understand what all of them do, right? I want to know how far they go, all of the packages, all of the technology, what I can get in them. And I think digital retailing is a way to do that. So I think we can do a lot better with digital retailing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that digital retail in general has, again, as I say it, to me, it's important to be remote and available to do it wherever. You know, when we push digital retail, you get a lot of consumer owned comfort. You know, the beginning of Shop Click Drive, their website, when you go to the credit app, had a big, huge red X that would come up and say not secure, right? So you'd think,
Yeah.
holy shit, customers got to be terrified, right? He logs on, not secure. He's about to put in his credit information. I don't think so. So I think that, I think consumers are still. I mean, look, I've made this reference a million times, but it works every time. Which is, I've got a Honda store that's 2 minutes from Google, 2 minutes from Facebook, Palo Alto, California. He'll do less than 1% digital retail end to end. Every single month, he was one of the first roadster dealers on earth. Whenever they came out, he's on their board. He'll do less than 1% end to end.
I believe it.
People are like, well, that's not the best, decision of, what would work or what doesn't. Well, okay, but he's in the middle of what I refer to as millennial tech hell. So if it wasn't important to those guys, they still want to come to his store, or they still want to have it, whatever, even if it's delivered to their office, it doesn't. Efficiency doesn't have to be online. I guess that's what I'll leave it at. You can look at you, Matt.
Sure.
It's, how efficient it is to make a service appointment online. Once you're logged into X time, it takes 2 seconds.
Yep.
Matt's not interested in that.
Nope.
Matt's interested in calling. He doesn't care about efficiency. He cares about connection.
Yep.
That's where I think people are at. I think they care about connection. So, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I care about both. I want my connection to be efficient. That's just who I am. That's what I want. And that's what I think we're working towards. And yes, COVID accelerated all of it for good or for bad. I think we put ourselves in some weird positions. But I think you even saw during COVID that people still want to get to the showrooms. I think it's for a different reason, because they just want to get out of their houses. But still, I think that I think we're really experiencing, that's the craziest time ever. I don't know how long you've been doing this, Matt, or how long you've been watching the industry, but this is my third year. I've never experienced anything like what we're currently going through every single day. That's for sure. Yeah.
It's, the connection part. I think we're going to see a big resurgence of that, because, 6 months from now will be 2 years. Right. And people are still going to be saying COVID.
Oh yeah.
It feels like, right. I mean, right. It's
the flu probably with regards to that. I don't know the word will ever leave the vernacular with regards to that. Yeah. I don't think so. And Matt,
a lot of time in our house.
2 years, right?
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah. And which I think is going to make us all want to go out and do stuff for another 10.
I agree. And I think it will push the connection, which honestly kind of flies in the face of the discussion we were just having about DR. The fact that there is people probably will say, you know what? Yes, take me to the dealership. Yes, let me go on the test drive through the mountains or wherever, or do the things that I'm used to doing. Yeah. Look, my household, we can't wait, but we can wait. We're patient enough to know that it isn't where we want it to be yet, as far as travel and going out and living the day to day. So we're patient. We'll wait till it is. And I wish more could do that, but I get it. I get it. Back to normal, Matt. Matt, this was awesome. I was really looking forward to this discussion, because I thought it would be about EV. So I was looking forward to it, because I am a naysayer, but it's an uneducated naysay. It's more of I've driven it twice and I hated it model. So it's not really a great model to live by. And I love franchise dealers. So I will always say, I think Elon Musk would be a lot richer if he would have just sold the idea of his battery to every manufacturer on earth and let them deal with it. Just residual. Every time they put a battery in a car, just pay the guy $1 and just let him live that way. But he created an incredible brand that is now setting itself apart. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for spending more than the gracious amount of time with me. I really appreciate it. Matt, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
LinkedIn,
baby. This is what we're all here for. Matt's on there. Like I said, Matt is a writer. He's got a record button thing. He does not hit the button yet. Maybe this will help catapult him. I don't know.
It's funny. I've got the ring light right there. I bought it for you. We're gonna get there.
Don't be afraid to go outside with the natural light, Matt. As you know, we like those too. So, Matt, thanks again. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate it. Next week on the show is going to be a mental health Monday check-in that you are not going to want to miss. This story is, I'm almost tearing up telling you the story. Tune in next week. Hear all about one of the most amazing stories from one of the most amazing guys I follow. Thank you, everyone. Have yourselves a great week. Matt, you too, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sean.